If there's one thing world leaders have today, it is power. A lot of power. They are responsible for huge populations, control economies, and even head national militaries. With these many responsibilities, it's understandable that it is in a country's best interest to give their first citizen the best security money can buy. Among the many presidents, world leaders, and heads of state that are constantly surrounded by jaw-dropping security details, here are some of the most heavily guarded rulers of all time. Number 8. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of Turkey. Aside from being Turkey's 12th and current president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan has gained massive popularity worldwide because he seems to have a knack for making one or two powerful enemies every now and then. Being a veteran of Turkey politics, having climbed from mayorhood to the top as president, Erdogan always has something to say about everybody. However, he does that knowing he will be just fine because of his impressive security. President Erdogan always has an extensive 60-man bodyguard team surrounding him wherever he is on the go. And that is not all he has in order to stay protected. When he's out on a visit somewhere, there are at least 100 snipers positioned around, alert to any danger and always keeping him in sight. 100 snipers may seem like overkill already, but that's just an average day for the man. On the days that he might have higher threat levels, the number goes up to 3,000 snipers. Aside from showing up in alarmingly massive numbers, these snipers are well trained to the extent that they can notice someone's muscles move wrong, and if it does, that someone will most likely get hit just in case they meant to cause the president any type of harm. When President Erdogan is on the road, he is granted a security convoy that can only be described as excessive to the highest level. There can be up to 12 luxury cars escorting the president, and of course, these vehicles are filled to the brim with his elite security team, who will spare no expense to ensure that the president is protected. President Erdogan's security detail can be so zealous to the point that they were willing to beat up American citizens, including women and children, U.S. Secret Service agents, and other security officers, for the sake of President Erdogan during a protest against him. As alarming as that sounds, it was not the only time this Turkish president's security detail would cause an international incident. Like their charge, the team members are not all too concerned about crossing anybody in order to achieve their sole goal, which is keeping Erdogan safe. This played out once again when Erdogan's security team clashed with Bosnia's border police because the former blatantly refused to hand over their weapons. Another thing you have probably figured out at this point is that President Erdogan's men are as well armed and deadly as they are zealous. They use weapons like the Turkish-made Yavuz 16 weapons and the MPT-76, what the Turkish call the National Infantry Rifle. The Yavuz 16 is the standard gun of the Turkish armed forces, and nearly every security officer in the country, including Erdogan's bodyguards. The MPT-76, or the National Infantry Rifle as it is fondly called, has an effective range of up to 600 meters and is capable of firing 600 rounds per minute at a muzzle velocity of 800 meters per second. With all that heat, Erdogan's security is packing enough power to take down a small army. It also helps that they are willing to do anything to protect their country's #1 citizen. Number 7. Narendra Damodar Das Modi, Prime Minister of India. Although India still remains a third-world country struggling to earn a place among the world powers, the country is actually doing a lot better than you might think, to the point that current Prime Minister Narendra Modi spends a whopping $48 million on his security every year. That's around 10% more than it has ever been before. The Special Protection Group, or SPG for short, is a special operations force whose only objective is to provide proximate security to the Prime Minister of India and his family. Modi has over 3,000 well-trained men acting as his bodyguards, and for mobility, the group owns hundreds of vehicles, helicopters, drones, planes, and motorbikes, dedicated only to keeping the Prime Minister safe. Generally, SPG special agents assigned to the Prime Ministerial Security Detail wear black Western-style formal business suits with dark sunglasses, a two-way encrypted communication earpiece, and are typically armed with concealed handguns. On rare traditional occasions that could pop up, the agents wear some safari suits to blend into the environment. As it turns out, Special Protection Group officers not only dress like Special Operations Commandos, they are just as well armed. Their equipment includes ultra-modern assault rifles, dark visor sunglasses with inbuilt communication earpieces, gloves, bulletproof vests, elbow pads, and knee pads. When the Prime Minister moves around the country, several roads are fully blocked for hours to let his massive convoy through. His convoy includes sophisticated vehicles that can ensure his protection, like the customized armored variants of the standard 2015 BMW 760 Li long wheelbase sedan. This vehicle is mainly used to transport Modi himself. The Prime Minister's motorcade also features at least 2 Mercedes-Maybach S650 Guards, 3 armored BMW 7 Series sedans, 4 armored Range Rovers, and at least 8 to 10 BMW X5s, 6 Toyota Fortuners or Land Cruisers, and at least 2 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter ambulances. A Tata Safari electronic countermeasures car also accompanies the convoy to counter guided and radio attacks. And besides that, there are many more escort vehicles, all serving a necessary function. The vehicles that carry Modi and his entourage are certified with VR7 in the BRV 2009 Ballistics Protection Ratings and can defend their occupants from anything ranging from landmine blasts to machine gun fire. That alone should be enough. But there are even more additional security upgrades added to Modi's vehicles. These upgrades include undercarriage armor 3 inches thick, multi-layer laminated glass, and armor plating on the doors, roof, body pillars, front footwell, and rear bulkhead. The vehicles are also fitted with run-flat tires that can run deflated for kilometers and advanced heat sensors to ward off missiles and bombs. In the same vein, the fuel tanks are sealed with Kevlar to prevent explosions. Vehicles like Modi's Mercedes-Maybachs have their interiors turned into gas-proof chambers that can ensure fresh oxygen supply to its occupants in cases of chemical and biological attacks. Other features that have been reportedly added to the cars in the Prime Minister's convoy include an intercom system that enables easy communication between the passengers and the driver, an alarm system, a fire extinguisher with a temperature sensor, irritant gas sensors to warn of dangerous gases in the passenger area, and compartments to carry 2 machine guns in the center console. As you would expect, not only are the roads made safer with extra vigilance when Modi is traveling, when India's Prime Minister travels by air, he makes use of the Air India One, the code name given to any aircraft carrying the President, Vice President, or the Prime Minister of India. These flights are operated with 2 customized Boeing 777-300ER aircrafts that bear distinct national markings. The aircrafts were built in the United States, using a similar design to Air Force One, the official aircraft used to transport the U.S. President. Additionally, for domestic flights, Modi and his team have the option of shuffling between 4 14-seater Embraer 135 aircrafts and 3 customized 46-seater Boeing Business Jet BBJ 737s that feature VIP cabins. Proving yet again that he will go to any length to ensure his safety, Narendra Modi once used an Indian Air Force Lockheed C-130J during his visit to Sri Lanka, an aircraft more suited for waging war than protecting lives. Securing the Prime Minister during air travel goes beyond transporting his team in luxurious aircrafts. It also involves using helicopters to patrol the skies, scouting for any danger. Various helicopters, including 6 new Mi-17 V5s, have been approved by India's Defense Ministry for this purpose. The Mi-17 V5s, amongst a lot of impressive functions, have advanced avionics, onboard navigation systems, and night vision devices. The SPG has also fitted their helicopters with armor plating and more durability to ensure the passengers' safety. Just in case you are already hyped up and planning to send in an application, you should know that the SPG does not directly recruit personnel. Recruits are instead drawn from enlisted ranks of the Central Armed Police Forces and Railway Protection Force. Personnel from these services may apply for deputation to the SPG and will undergo rigorous physical and psychological assessments as well as enhanced security screening. Deputation to the SPG usually lasts 5 years, but may be extended at the director's discretion. Since the inception of the Special Protection Group, it has become public knowledge that the agents are ready to jump in front of any danger that comes knocking, all in a bid to protect their charge. In fact, they must have, because the SPG officers so far have been awarded 43 President's Police Medals for distinguished service and 319 police medals for meritorious service. All that tech, skill, and bravery is presently only reserved for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as he is the only SPG protectee. Number 6. Mamadi Doumbouya, interim military president of Guinea. The previous president of Guinea, Alpha Condé, might have made an appearance on this list if not for the fact that his well-trained security personnel could not stop the coup d'etat that took him out of power. After he was overthrown, Alpha Condé's position was taken over by Mamadi Doumbouya, a lieutenant colonel in the army. He now serves as the country's interim president. In a rather shocking turn of events, it turns out that President Doumbouya was personally groomed by the previous president from the rank of corporal to become the head of the Special Forces Group, an elite military unit created by Condé himself. But before Condé was ousted from power, he went out of his way to revamp the military. The budget spent on his plan for a deadlier and better trained security force was estimated to be about $119 million in 2005, 2.9% of the country's GDP. And although the 2006 defense budget was way less, at an estimated $30 million, a lot of money was still spent on the military. Condé got the military back to their barracks, redeployed some battalions to their territory, and retired some 4,000 soldiers. He increased budgets, intensified the administration's militarization, and became more demanding when it came to recruitment. The creation of the Special Forces, an elite battalion that was financed directly by the presidency, was a response to Condé's need to strengthen and professionalize his army. It also received the blessing of foreign partners who believed that this unit would be able to fight drug trafficking and terrorism. Unfortunately for Condé, he was unknowingly putting things in motion for his own downfall. Speaking on the creation of the Special Forces, a member of the former government team confirmed that Alpha Condé created an extremely well-armed monster. The team of about 100 qualified and well-trained soldiers, including Colonel Doumbouya, who led the Special Forces unit, had been training abroad since 2010 and were privy to intense American Special Ops exercises. It was this same team that helped Doumbouya overthrow Condé and take over as president. To this day, the team members remain loyal to the military ruler and are, of course, in charge of his safety. They are tasked with protecting him against potential threats, like supporters of the previous regime. Like most of the military that Condé so generously funded, Doumbouya's Special Forces Group is fully armed with tactical armor, towed artillery, anti-tank artillery, rocket launchers, air defense guns, and missiles. They are well-versed in reconnaissance and have attack helicopters at their disposal. The military unit is, as we have found out, well-trained and well-equipped for their duties, and their most important duty right now is keeping interim president Mamadi Doumbouya safe, making him one of the most safeguarded presidents in history. Number 5. Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. Being the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of one of the biggest exporters of oil in the world is definitely enough reason for Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud to keep tight security around himself, and the prince does just that. With a net worth estimated to be over $13 billion, Mohammed bin Salman definitely sits as one of the most influential people in the Arab world, and with so much power comes the need to protect himself. Over the years, news has spread like wildfire that the prince might have a huge target on his back due to several reasons, and one of them is the fact that he was tied to the brutal murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Before he was named Prime Minister of the oil-rich nation of Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman served as the Minister of Defense. During his time in this position, he made some radical changes to the Saudi army, and with his safety and protection being a key focus. With his authority as the Crown Prince and role as the Minister of Defense, Mohammed bin Salman took sole control of all Saudi Arabia's military and security agencies. Using the excuse of improving their capabilities and performance, the prince wrestled and took over control of some of these agencies from other royal family members and brought them under a single new body called the Presidency of State Security. He also implemented reforms in several security agencies across the country. These reforms include replacing the Royal Guard commander, appointing a new chief of staff for the armed forces, as well as various other leaders, and most importantly, making sure that all the newly appointed officials answer only to him. Prince Mohammed bin Salman basically united the country's military power with the expertise of the state's secret services and effectively created a personal army tasked with protecting him from all threats. Thanks to the power moves he is constantly making to ensure that he has a firm grip on the majority of security agencies in the nation, Mohammed bin Salman has a strong security detail filled with highly trained soldiers and a cybersecurity team that is always on the lookout for viable threats to his well-being. Since it was first put together, the Crown Prince's security detail has continued to grow and expand annually. 2 2 years ago, news broke out that the Saudi royal was searching for 800 new officers. As far as military equipment and fighting gear are concerned, the heir to the Saudi throne has done a lot to modernize the country's military equipment. In fact, in 2019, he spent over $20 billion on buying top-notch guns and artillery for the country's army. With that in mind, it's safe to say that those tasked with protecting Prince Mohammed bin Salman have not just the skills, but also the equipment needed to do their job diligently. Number 4. Xi Jinping, President of China. Seeing how China is a world power, it makes total sense that the country and her citizens would be more than willing to go to extreme lengths to ensure their president's well-being. Today, the Central Security Bureau is the chief organization that is responsible for the protection of the country's head and powerful leaders. The Bureau controls the Central Guard Unit, otherwise known as the Central Guard Regiment, a deadly unit of bodyguards trained by the People's Liberation Army of China. This group has guarded all the past Chinese leaders and their immediate families. But of all leaders who have employed their services, Xi Jinping's security seems to have demanded the most from them. The unit tasked with protecting the president consists of a brigade with 3 regiments, and all members of these regiments are responsible for different aspects of the president's safety. The total strength of the unit is more than 8,000 men, organized into 7 groups, totaling 36 squadrons. Each subgroup and individual is saddled with a unique mission pertaining to the protection of the president. Back when Xi Jinping visited Hong Kong for its 25th anniversary of returning to Chinese rule on the 30th of June last year, there was an unprecedented level of security for the president that involved machine guns placed around the city, ballistic briefcases, and a very long motorcade. During the event, the Chinese ruler was escorted by elite officers from a VIP protection unit, formerly known as G4, along with his personal bodyguards from the Central Security Bureau, and they were all armed to the teeth. Some members of the security detail were equipped with lightweight ballistic briefcases that could convert into fold-out bulletproof shields or blankets to provide protective coverage within a matter of seconds. They were also reported to have had machine guns disguised as briefcases, so they could take immediate heavy action in the event of danger. The president was moved around with a very long motorcade that had about 50 police vehicles, and each vehicle was present anytime Xi Jinping had to be on the move. Xi Jinping himself was seated in a bulletproof 4-door Hongqi sedan, a luxury Chinese car that has been used by leaders of the ruling Communist Party from the time of its founder Mao Zedong. To add a nice, secure finish to it all, there was also a government helicopter riding along for aerial protection against airborne attackers. All traffic lights were blocked so that the motorcade did not have to make any stop during the trip and inadvertently become sitting ducks for would-be attackers. Seems like a lot to ensure the safety of one man, but at least it is certain that the president of China never has to look over his shoulders in fear. Number 3. Kim Jong-un, Supreme Leader of North Korea. Since the reign of North Korea's head of state began, he has had no shortage of enemies popping up, mainly because his power is not that of a democratic rule. Kim Jong-un is an unapologetic dictator, and he has an iron grip on North Korea. Considering his unpopular reign, it should be expected that some opposition will most likely come up. But with the dictator's insane security, they definitely will have their work cut out for them. Wherever he goes, North Korea's #1 citizen is protected by a security team that can easily be mistaken for an elite military special ops division. When the dictator is moving by road, his presidential car is always flanked by a team of sharply dressed bodyguards. The guards all have to be extremely fit, because sometimes their job description requires them to jog alongside Kim Jong-un's car, no matter how long the drive is. The runner bodyguards are part of the Central Party Office number 6, an elite team of bodyguards that is not easy to get into. There are a lot of tests to be passed to be considered for a spot in the large team that safeguards the most important person in the country. One of the many hurdles candidates have to cross is meeting the height requirement. To be guaranteed a position on the squad, prospective candidates need to be roughly the same height as the North Korean head of state. For whatever the reason may be, height is an important factor in choosing candidates. Some people have speculated that this requirement was put in place simply because Kim Jong-un didn't want to be surrounded by taller men, but I guess we will never know. Other distinct features must be met, but it is a given that each guard is tested in the more important skills, like marksmanship and martial arts. The chosen candidates need to be able to protect the head of state in the most dire situations, and this is probably why they have to take tests that are believed to be similar to the ones Secret Service operatives are given before being placed on the presidential detail. Aspiring members of Kim Jong-un's security detail are also subjected to an intensive background check that scrutinizes even the last 2 generations of their family trees to ensure that they have no conflict of interest or potential weakness that a blackmailer might take advantage of. It already seems like a lot of thought is put into keeping Kim Jong-un safe, but that is not all. Aside from his personal bodyguards, a whole unit of the North Korean army is also devoted to protecting the head of state. If you are wondering what the big deal about that is, well, here is the thing. Members of the army go where they are told without question and do not have the luxury of refusing orders. They can and will do anything to ensure the safety of Kim Jong-un. North Korea's presidential security system comprises one of the most complex military teams in the world, with a staff of over 100,000 members, and they all have the single duty of protecting one man. Officially, the unit is known as the Supreme Guard Command and is overseen by General Yoon Jong-rin. The command is based in Pyongyang, near Kim Jong-un's headquarters, but they have camps all around the country. Aside from its original members, the unit has access to another 100,000 soldiers in case of a serious attack on Kim Jong-un. These standby members are trained to be on ground, ready to move him to a secure location quickly and deploy armored vehicles to keep him safe. The members of the elite security group high up in the command chain have access to classified information needed to keep their charge safe. This information includes the location of hidden bunkers, built to shelter and protect the dictator from any attack. Although units in the command serve specific purposes, having 100,000 people to protect one man seems like overkill, especially since the vast majority of them are chosen as teenagers and are put through years of intensive training, with only one priority: keeping Kim Jong-un safe. Number 2. Donald Trump, President of the United States. There was never a doubt about Donald Trump making this list, and of course he ranks this high because of reasons that will soon be obvious. For starters, the one-time president was not only the leader of one of the most powerful countries in the world, but he is also a big-time billionaire with hundreds of businesses all over the world. Trump's political position, personal wealth, and love for security make up the reasons why the billionaire president's term in office broke a record with his security expenses. How big a record, you ask? Well, while the protection of the previous president, Barack Obama, and his family cost the country about $16 million a year, Trump's time in office raised the bar to a staggering $29 million. That alone was enough to knock over some records, but it gets even more astonishing. In 2017, the U.S. Congress budgeted a whopping $120 million for the protection of Donald Trump and his family. Now, you are probably wondering just how Trump managed to splurge $120 million on security, and you are about to find out. To begin with, the elite Secret Service in charge of protecting the then-president had more than 7,000 elements, like the different units and personnel, all perfectly coordinated and ready for any situation that might have threatened the life of Trump. Of course, these elements did not cost no small bills, hence the overwhelming protection fees. A significant part of the protection fees were spent on the Beast. Not a beast, the Beast. The Beast has been referred to as the safest limousine in the world, and I couldn't agree more. The limo comes with 5-inch thick armor plating, 5 layers of bulletproof glass, 8-inch thick doors that vacuum seal the interior just in case of any chemical attack, heavy-hitting guns, Kevlar tires, and steel rims that can drive with full function, even if the tires are popped. The Beast's fuel tank is well insulated so that it cannot explode or leak, and the interior has its own oxygen tank, just in case of a chemical emergency. In the trunk of this magnificent car is a firefighting system, tear gas and smokescreen systems, a full medical kit, and bags of the president's blood type just in case he needs a transfusion. With all these, Trump still had a lifeline that is a direct, secure line to the vice president and the Pentagon. Regardless of where he is headed, the presidential motorcade always consists of more than 30 vehicles a trip, and you will most likely not find a grander entourage. At the head of the entire motorcade, there are usually a few normal police cars or bikes from the local area, tasked with clearing the air and making sure the coast is clear. Right behind the police cars and bikes are the pilot cars that clear the way in the area. They are usually located directly in front of the president's vehicle, and they act as a buffer between the outside world and the little safe bubble that the president exists in. The lead cars are the next in the convoy, and they comprise of the Beast and its replicas. Usually there are just two lead cars, named the authentic Beast and a replica, but there is no limit to the number of lead cars the president needs. Donald Trump developed the strategy of adding replicas of the Beast to his convoy to serve two purposes. One, to throw off any potential attackers, and to transport any other VIPs that the president may have. Next in line is a halfback that rides behind the president and carries his security detail. If there is only one halfback, which there rarely is, then it is probably chock full with the CAT, the counter-assault team. These guys are the main security detail that travel behind the president, and it is their duty to contain the situation if the motorcade is ambushed. Riding behind them is a van called the Watchtower that has little antennas on the top to disable any sort of electronic devices from going off. Along with that is an ID car to identify any threats and communicate with other members of the motorcade, especially the vehicles at the head of the convoy, and the pilot vehicles to make sure no threats lie ahead. Riding right behind the ID car is a hazard mitigation unit that looks like a black ambulance and is fully equipped to deal with any sort of biological hazards. It more or less functions as a roadrunner that creates a secure network between everyone in the motorcade and the outside world. Of course, there is also an ambulance that rides in the back of the motorcade, ready to assist in any sort of medical emergency, obviously prioritizing the president. At the far end of the convoy sits the rear guard that protects the back of the motorcade. The entire entourage travels with the president everywhere he goes, whether it's a lunch date or a trip to a foreign country. Aside from the vehicles in his entourage, there are a ton of other vehicles and aircrafts used solely for Trump's security, like Air Force One, which he rode guarded by two F-35 combat forces, the Marine One and the Ground Force One. Other units involved one way or another in protecting the U.S.'s #1 citizen include K-9 units, emergency response teams, snipers, motorized units, and special operations teams that carry out orders for the sake of the president's safety. Number 1. Vladimir Putin, President of Russia. Russia may very well be the most disliked country in the world right now. One of the most powerful, definitely, but also the most disliked, especially with the whole Ukraine situation. With that in mind, it is easy to see that Russia's head of state, Vladimir Putin, is a powerful man with a very big and attractive target on his back. This is why the former KGB agent, who has been in power since the year 2000, is beyond obsessed with his security and health, and he takes extra measures to tend to both. President Putin is always on guard against assassins in the shadows, and it's not just a thing of paranoia, especially when you think about the one time a US senator publicly called for anybody in Russia to take him out. And no, he did not mean to dinner.
For somebody in Russia to take this guy out, you would be doing your country a great service and the world a great service.
Looking at the man he is and all that he has done, it does not come as much of a shock that the Russian president's security detail is the best of the best at what they do. The first line of defense between Putin and any potential threats are his bodyguards, who call themselves his musketeers. The musketeers make up a special unit within Russia's Federal Protective Service, or the FSO for short. Not much is known about this elite squad, and the little that is known comes from a website called Beyond Russia. The information available states that the bodyguards are handpicked for qualities like operational psychology, extreme physical stamina, and of course, the ability to withstand the country's cold and not sweat in the heat of battle. Unarmed, the musketeers are very dangerous men, but that hardly matters, seeing as how they are equipped with Russian-made 9mm SR-1 Vector pistols with armor-piercing rounds. The squad also carries special briefcases that serve as shields to protect their charge from any attack at close range. Before Russia's #1 citizen embarks on any journeys, advanced teams are sent out to scout his destinations months ahead of schedule to fish out the safest routes. Wherever he stays also gets inspected thoroughly. Jamming devices are installed to prevent any sort of remote bomb detonation, and the technicians on his payroll constantly survey all cell phones and devices in the area. When Putin does get on the road, he rides amidst an imposing convoy of heavily armored vans. Inside some of the vans are military special operators armed with anti-tank grenade launchers, portable powerful anti-aircraft missiles and other advanced weapons. Putin's obsession with security does not allow him to step out in public without having snipers perched around the perimeter, waiting to quickly snuff out any threat at any time. The FSO is reported to have a wide-ranging authority, one that enables them to eavesdrop on private conversations, access private mail, search homes, seize vehicles and detain, and interrogate any suspect, all to ensure Putin's protection. When the musketeers are replaced no later than the age of 35, they are mostly rewarded with important and powerful new positions like regional governors, federal ministers, special services commanders, and presidential administrators. That is how powerful the president's protectors are and can get. Oh, and if President Putin was ever to get into any life-threatening danger, his security detail is willing to employ a presidential body double to distract any unforeseen enemies, probably take some potential bullets for the body number one, and ensure his safety, as that is all that matters. It is also a standard procedure for Putin's team to employ someone to sample every meal he is served in order to ensure he is not poisoned. According to an organization whose members cook for heads of states and monarchs called the Club de Chefs, the report seems to be pretty accurate. Gilles Bergard, a well-known chef, once told The Telegraph years ago that tasters still exist, but only in the Kremlin, where a doctor checks every dish with the chef. Taking into consideration the fact that Putin remains unharmed, it's safe to say that the members of his security detail take every measure to protect those in charge, and so far, they have excelled at that. Wealth and power truly does create a lot of crazy situations. Find out more crazy ones in the video on your screen right now.